They left me at the airport because I walked too slowly. They said I was slowing everyone down. So they boarded the plane and flew away without me. And what I did afterward marked them forever. Before we begin today's story, I would love for you to write in the comments where you're listening from. And at the end, tell me what you think about this story and what you would have done in my place. My name is Helen. I am 67 years old. And this is the day my own family treated me like excess baggage. And the day I finally decided I was not a burden. I was a person, their mother. And I was done begging for a place in their lives. I had been looking forward to that trip for months. It was my daughter's idea. At least that's what she told everyone. "Mum, we're all going to Spain together," she said on the phone, her voice bright, like she was offering me the world. "The kids, Mark and I, and you. A proper family vacation. You deserve it." Of course, what she didn't mention was that I was the one paying for most of it. I had been saving since my husband died. Little by little, from my widow's pension and the money I made baking cakes and selling them to neighbours and at church events. I'd kept it aside in a separate account. Just in case. Money. Just in case the house needed a new roof. Just in case I got sick. Just in case the grandchildren ever needed help with school. When my daughter Laura suggested the trip, I didn't hesitate. "Let me help with the tickets," I told her. "I want to see the kids' faces when they try real churros and chocolate." "You're the best, Mom," she said. "You're really saving us here." I swallowed that sentence like a pill. You're saving us. Funny, how words can feel so sweet one moment and so bitter later. You need to understand something about me. I don't walk as fast as I used to. My right knee. The same knee I used to kneel on when cleaning under the bed. The same knee that carried me through double shifts at the factory when my children were little. That knee complains now. It swells when it's cold. It locks when I climb too many stairs. Sometimes it crackles loudly, like someone stepping on dry leaves. But I still get around. I go to the market, to church, and I even do my little walks around the neighborhood every evening. I move slower, yes, but I move. That day at the airport, though, my body felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was the nerves. I hadn't flown in over 20 years. The last time was with my husband, Miguel, when we snuck away for a tiny honeymoon to the beach after the kids were born, leaving them with my mother for 2 nights. The memory of that trip still warmed me. His hand covering mine on the airplane armrest, our shared laughter when turbulence shook the plane, and he pretended to be brave while squeezing my fingers too tightly. Miguel had been gone for 12 years now, and on that day, standing in the crowded airport with bright lights and rolling suitcases, I felt his absence like a cold draft on my back. We arrived 3 hours early, just like my son-in-law insisted. "We can't risk being late," Mark said, checking his watch. He was always checking his watch. "This is an international flight, people. We need to be organized." Laura rolled her eyes, but she followed his lead. She usually did. The grandchildren, Emma and Lucas, ran ahead with the excitement only children can have. Emma swung her little backpack, covered in stickers, and Lucas's sneakers flashed with every step. "Slow down a bit," I called out, gripping the strap of my purse. "Stay where I can see you." I don't think they heard me over the noise. The airport was alive, wheels scraping, announcements echoing, the smell of coffee and disinfectant, people moving with purpose, like they had all rehearsed this scene except me. "Mom, you're fine?" Laura walked half a step ahead of me, scrolling on her phone. "You have your passport, boarding pass, everything?" I patted my small crossbody bag. "Yes, Yes, I checked 3 times. Good, because we can't afford any delays, Mark said. The gate might be far. This airport's huge. He said we, but what he meant was, you can't afford any delays, Helen. I smiled anyway. I'll do my best. I always did my best. It had rarely been enough for anyone, but I did it anyway. The line for the check-in counter moved faster than I did. People behind us shifted, sighed, looked over my shoulder. I could feel their impatience like a hand between my shoulder blades pushing me forward. Laura tapped her foot. Mark kept glancing at the screens. Come on, Mom, Laura whispered when the line moved again. Just a little faster. I tried. My knee protested. The wheel of my suitcase caught on someone else's bag. I stumbled, caught myself, and forced a little laugh to show I was fine. When we finally reached the front, the airline agent smiled at us politely, but her eyes were already tired. Good morning. Passports, please, she said. Mark slapped down a handful of passports like he was slamming cards in a game. 4 tickets to Madrid, he said. My mother-in-law should be on the same reservation. Your mother? The agent looked up, confused, then smiled when she saw me. Ah, of course. I see all 5 on the screen. She checked us in, tagged the luggage, and then handed us the boarding passes. She spoke to Mark, then to Laura. When she looked at me, her voice softened a little. Senior boarding is available, she said quietly. If you want, you can board earlier, so you have more time to find your seat. Oh, that's nice. I smiled back. Thank you. We don't need that, do we? Mark cut in, tucking the passes into his pocket. The agent glanced between us. It's just an option. The flight is quite full. We'll manage, Mark replied, as long as we get to the gate on time. As long as we get there on time, not as long as she is comfortable. I felt my cheeks warm, but I stayed silent. I was used to making myself small. Security was worse. Shoes off, bags in trays, laptops out, belts removed. It felt like too many things happening at once. By the time I got to the conveyor belt, I was holding up the line again. Mum, take off your shoes, Laura said, exasperation already creeping in. I know, I'm doing it, I murmured, bending slowly, my knee complaining. A young man behind me let out a sigh so loud it felt personal. I fumbled with my laces. In my head, I heard Miguel's voice. Easy, Lenita, one thing at a time. But Miguel wasn't there, so I just smiled apologetically at the stranger and focused on my fingers. Here, Mum, let me, Emma said, suddenly appearing at my side. My heart softened. She knelt and helped me pull off my sneaker, then the other. It took less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds that meant the world to me. Thank you, sweetie, I whispered. Emma grinned. We're a team, Grandma. But then security ushered them forward, and the river of people carried my grandchildren away. I watched them disappear past the metal detectors, laughing with each other, while I slowly shuffled through, holding on to the plastic trays. The machine beeped when I walked through. Step back, ma'am, the agent said. My heart pounded. I felt everyone behind me stiffen with impatience. I don't have anything, I swear, I said quickly. It's probably just your bracelet or your watch. The agent remained calm. Please remove any metal objects and try again. My hands trembled as I fumbled with my bracelet, the thin gold one Miguel had given me for our 20th anniversary. My fingers slipped. Mum, we don't have time for this, Laura called from the other side, already putting on her shoes. Just take it off. I swallowed hard, unclasped it, and placed it in the tray. It passed through. I passed through. The world didn't end, but something cracked inside me that I couldn't name yet. Sahiti. By the time we reached the terminal, my knee felt like it was full of broken glass. Gate F28, Mark announced, looking at the boarding pass. We have 40 minutes. If we walk quickly, we'll be there in 10. We can grab coffee on the way. He said, if we walk quickly, while glancing at me. I caught the meaning. I can try, I said, adjusting the strap on my bag. There's a moving walkway, Emma said cheerfully. Grandma can get on that. That's a good idea, I agreed, forcing a smile. I've never been on one. So we walked. Well, they walked. I hobbled. The terminal stretched like a never-ending corridor. People rushed past us, wheeling suitcases, checking screens, laughing, arguing softly on the phone. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other. Mum, can you keep up? Laura asked over her shoulder. Yes, I said, even though my knee was throbbing. We reached the moving walkway, and I stepped onto it carefully, feeling the strange vibration under my feet. It was faster than I expected. My heart jumped, but Emma held my arm. We're flying, she giggled. For now, yes, I said, managing to laugh. At the end of the walkway, I almost lost my balance, but Mark caught my elbow. Careful, he muttered. We really don't have time for a fall. I'm fine, I replied quietly. We kept walking and walking and walking. I didn't notice when the conversations around me blurred. I didn't notice when Laura pulled ahead, laughing at something on her phone. I didn't notice that I was getting slower and slower, until I looked up and realized my family was several meters ahead. Laura? I called out. She didn't hear me. Emma? I tried. Nothing. I stopped for a second to catch my breath. My chest felt tight. I looked around, searching for a bench, but all I saw were endless shops and strangers. A wave of panic rose in my throat. Don't cry here, Helen, I told myself. Don't cry in the middle of the airport. I started walking again, a little faster, ignoring the pain. My eyes stayed locked on the back of Mark's blue jacket, like it was a lighthouse in a storm. Then something happened. Mark turned around, saw how far behind I was, and I swear to you, his face twisted with annoyance, not concern. He leaned toward my daughter and said something. Laura glanced over her shoulder, looked at me struggling, and then she looked away. They walked faster, as if my slowness was contagious, as if my presence was an inconvenience they didn't want to catch. A few seconds later, the airport speaker crackled. Attention! Passengers traveling to Madrid on Flight 214. Your departure gate has been changed. The new gate is G12. Boarding will begin shortly. The words felt like they were in slow motion. Laura checked the screen. They changed the gate, she said to Mark. G12. That's all the way on the other side. We have to hurry, he replied. Come on. They broke into a brisk walk. I did not. I could not. Wait, I called. Wait for me. For a moment, Laura turned back. Our eyes met. There was a flicker there of something that looked like doubt. But then Mark said something I couldn't hear, and she turned away again. They walked faster. I hurried as much as my knee allowed, but they were further and further ahead. I watched as they turned a corner and vanished. Just like that. One moment I could see them, and the next I couldn't. The panic truly set in then. I felt it claw its way up my chest, tightening my throat. "Excuse me?" I asked an airport employee in a bright vest. "Where is gate G12? "All the way down that way, ma'am," he said, pointing. "Then you turn right. Follow the signs. It's about 10 minutes walking." 10 minutes walking for normal legs. I nodded, grabbed my bag tighter, and started walking as fast as I could. I whispered a prayer under my breath. "Please, God, just let me get there in time." Every step sent a jolt of pain through my knee, but I didn't stop. I focused on the signs. G10, G11, G12. When I finally turned the last corner, breathing hard, I saw it. Gate G12. The boarding gate. The line of passengers. The open door to the jet bridge. I scanned the faces. I searched desperately for my daughter, my grandchildren, my son-in-law. They weren't there. I hurried to the counter, heart hammering. "Excuse me?" I said, trying not to let my voice shake. "My family should be here. My daughter, my grandchildren. We're on the same booking." The agent checked the computer. "Name, please?" "Helen Morales." She typed, then nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Morales, you're here. The rest of your party has already boarded." I blinked. "They're on the plane already?" "Yes," she said, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. "They boarded during the primary boarding call. We're now at final call for remaining passengers." I stared at her, the words failing to make sense. "They boarded?" I repeated. "Without me?" She looked at me with a mix of confusion and professional detachment. "I suppose so, ma'am. Are you ready to board?" I looked at the jet bridge, at the dark tunnel leading into the unknown. I thought of walking down there alone, limping, holding back tears while my family sat comfortably inside, not even wondering if I was okay. My chest burned, my ears rang. I swallowed hard and tried to breathe. "Ma'am?" the agent asked. "We need to close the door in the next 2 minutes. Do you want to board?" I opened my mouth. What came out surprised even me. "No," I said. "No, I don't." The agent frowned. "You don't want to board?" I shook my head. "Please, take me off the flight." She stared for a moment, perhaps wondering if she'd heard right. Then she nodded and started typing. "Very well. I'll offload you from the flight. Do you have checked luggage?" "Yes, 1 suitcase." "We'll have it brought back to the carousel," she said. "Please wait nearby. I'll call someone to assist you." Her voice was professional, but I saw something else flash in her eyes. A quiet kind of understanding. The kind you only see in people who have watched many human dramas play out in airports. "Thank you," I whispered. I stepped aside, sat in one of the plastic chairs, and finally let the tears fall. They were not hysterical tears, not noisy or wild. They were slow, quiet tears that rolled down my cheeks and dropped onto my hands like little glass beads. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Laura. "Mum, we had to rush to the gate. They were closing boarding. You were walking too slow. We're already on the plane. Don't worry, you can take the next flight. We'll meet you in Madrid." "It's not a big deal. Not a big deal." My throat tightened. Another message followed, this time from Mark. "You should have kept up. We can't miss the flight just because you're slow. Just talk to the airline, they'll sort you out. You're an adult." "You're an adult." Funny, because they had treated me like a child all morning, a bothersome, incompetent child. I stared at the messages, at the casual cruelty wrapped in so-called practicality. And then, suddenly, something inside me went very still. It was like when a storm finally passes and the air becomes clear. In that silence, a single thought appeared, sharp and simple. They left me. Not the airline, not the security line, not fate. My family chose to leave me behind. They weighed their options, risk missing the flight or leave the slow old woman, and they made a decision. They chose the flight. They did not choose me. Sometimes, the moment your heart breaks is also the moment your eyes finally open. Sitting there, surrounded by strangers and the echo of rolling suitcases, I realized something. I had spent my whole life running behind them, behind my children, behind everyone. I had run behind them when they were little, picking up toys and cleaning crumbs. I had run behind them as teenagers, working double shifts to pay for their activities, their clothes, their dreams. I had run behind them as adults, babysitting, cooking, loaning money when they were in a tight spot, always behind, always catching up, always grateful to be included in their lives at all. And now, literally, they had walked ahead of me in an airport and boarded a plane without looking back. A new sentence formed slowly in my mind, one I had never dared to think before. Maybe I am not the burden here. Maybe the burden was the disrespect, the entitlement, the careless way they assumed I would always follow. Maybe I was not meant to keep chasing people who didn't care if I arrived or not. Mrs. Morales? I looked up. A woman in an airport uniform stood beside me. She looked to be around my age, maybe a few years younger. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her eyes were kind. Yes? I asked, wiping my cheeks. I'm Rosa, she said gently. They called me from the gate. They said you chose not to board and needed assistance. Are you all right? A part of me wanted to say yes, out of habit, to minimize, to make things easy for everyone else. But I didn't. No, I said softly. Not really. She nodded, like she'd expected that answer. Do you want to talk about it? I hesitated. And then, surprisingly, I did. Words spilled out of me in broken pieces. I told her about my knee, about my daughter, about my grandchildren, about the messages on my phone, about how they had gone on without me, as if I were a suitcase they'd forgotten to roll along. Rosa listened without looking at her watch, without interrupting with advice. She just listened, her expression a mixture of sadness and something like quiet anger on my behalf. When I finished, she sighed. I've seen a lot of things in this terminal, she said. But that's cruel. Her words were a balm and a blade at the same time. They validated my pain and made it impossible to keep excusing it. What should I do? I asked, feeling suddenly very small and very old. Rosa looked at me steadily. First, we're going to get your suitcase back and make sure you get home safely, she said. And then, you're going to decide what you want, not what your daughter wants, not what your son-in-law wants. What you want? I swallowed. I don't know what I want. Yes, you do, she said softly. You just haven't allowed yourself to say it yet. It took almost an hour for my suitcase to reappear on the carousel. By then, the plane carrying my family was already in the sky, tiny and distant, like a metal bird with no conscience whatsoever. Rosa walked with me to the taxi area. Do you live far? She asked. About 30 minutes away, I replied. She helped me put the suitcase in the trunk, then turned to me. One day, she said, They're going to realize what they did. People always think they have time to make things right, until they don't. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said, for listening, for everything. She smiled. Take care of yourself, Mrs. Morales. Remember, you're not luggage. Those words stayed with me the entire ride home. You're not luggage. You're not luggage. You're not luggage. The house felt different when I walked in. It was quiet, as usual. My plants stood by the window, reaching for the light. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked softly. Everything was exactly the same. But I was not. I put the suitcase beside the door. It still had the airline tag attached, a little proof of the journey that never happened. I made myself a cup of tea, even though my hands were still shaking, and sat at the kitchen table. I didn't turn on the television. I didn't put on music. I just sat in the silence and stared at my phone. Messages began to arrive hours later when they landed. A flood of texts from Laura. We arrived. Are you in Madrid yet? Mom, did you catch the second flight? Why aren't you answering? Mom, what's going on? You're worrying me. Then, a voice message from Mark, his tone annoyed. Helen, you can't just disappear like this. The kids are asking where you are. We explained you took another flight because you're slow, but now you're not here. This is really irresponsible. That word again. Slow. Used like an accusation, not a simple description. I placed the phone face down on the table and breathed. This was the moment I could have done what I always did. Answer quickly, apologize, take responsibility, fix everything for them. Tell them I missed the second flight, cry a little, listen to them half apologize, and then send them money for whatever they needed. I had done that my entire life, for everyone, but something had changed at gate G12. I picked up the phone, not to reply, but to scroll through my old photos. There I was at 30, holding Laura as a baby, my hair pulled back, my eyes so tired but so full of love. There I was at 42, working in a bakery, flour on my cheeks. There I was at 55, holding Miguel's hand at the hospital. The last picture before everything changed. I realized suddenly that I had always been there, at every moment, for everyone. How many moments had anyone truly been there for me? Not many. Maybe. That's what I wanted. Not revenge. Not even punishment. I wanted to teach them something they clearly had never learned. That love is not guaranteed. That respect is not optional. That a mother is not a piece of luggage you can drop and pick up later when it suits you. I picked up the phone again. This time I opened my banking app. 3 weeks before the trip, I had sent money to Laura to finish paying for their passports and suitcases. She'd promised to pay me back, eventually, which usually meant never. I looked at the balance of my small savings account. There was still a decent sum there, even after the flight. I remembered how excited I had been to use it on this trip, to create one last beautiful memory with my grandchildren while my health still allowed it. Now I made a decision. That money would still be used for travel, but not for them, for me. I didn't reply to their messages that day, or the next. I let them stew in uncertainty, not out of cruelty, but because for the first time I realized their worrying was not my emergency to fix. After 2 days, the messages changed in tone. Mom, this is not funny. Where are you? Why are you doing this? Are you angry because we boarded without you? They were closing the gate. What were we supposed to do? Mom, answer me, please. There it was, the first crack in their certainty that I would always be available. On the third day, I answered with a simple text. I am safe. Enjoy your trip. We will talk when you get back. Nothing more. No explanations. No apologies. Just a boundary. They came back a week later. In the past, I would have been at the arrivals gate, standing on tiptoe, tears in my eyes, waving as they walked out. I would have taken the grandchildren's backpacks, listened to their stories, and offered to cook them a warm meal. Not this time. This time I was at home when the taxi dropped them off. I watched from the front window as they got out, tired and sunburned, dragging their suitcases. The kids looked excited, waving something in the air. Small souvenirs, I guessed. Laura rang the doorbell. Then she rang again. I let it ring for a full minute before opening. When I finally opened the door, the look on her face was a mix of relief and anger. "Mom," she said, "what on earth is going on? Why didn't you answer our calls?" I stepped aside to let them in, but didn't offer to help with the bags. "I told you," I replied calmly. "We would talk when you got back." Emma ran toward me, arms wide. "Grandma, we missed you." My heart softened instantly. I knelt down carefully and hugged her, then Lucas. "I missed you too, my loves," I whispered. "So much." Mark stood by the door, his expression guarded. The house felt different with them inside. Crowded, noisy, yet somehow I didn't feel like a ghost this time. "Sit down," I said. "We need to talk." We gathered in the living room. Laura sat on the couch, arms crossed. Mark sat beside her, scrolling on his phone like he had more important things to do. The children sat on the floor, playing with their souvenirs but glancing up, sensing the tension. I sat in my old armchair, the one Miguel used to call my throne. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe it was. "First of all," I began, "I am glad you are all safe. I'm glad your trip went well." "It would have gone better if you'd been there," Emma pouted. "Grandma, why didn't you come?" I looked at her, then at Lucas. I wanted to protect them from everything, but I also knew that protecting them from the truth would only repeat the cycle. "I didn't go," I said gently, "because I chose not to board the plane." Laura let out a sharp breath. "Mum, you're being dramatic. You missed the plane." "No," I corrected. "I arrived at the gate. The agent told me that my family had already boarded. I was offered the chance to go on the plane alone, and I said no." They all went quiet. Mark stopped scrolling. "Why?" he asked, eyebrows furrowing. "Why would you do that?" "Because," I said slowly, "I realized that if my own family could leave me behind without looking back, then maybe I didn't want to spend a whole week pretending that didn't hurt." Laura's eyes widened. "We did look back, Mom. We sent you messages." "Yes," I replied. "After you were safely on the plane, not while I was limping through the terminal, not when the gate was changed, not when someone had to decide between running ahead and walking by my side." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Mark shifted. "They were closing the gate," he said. "We couldn't miss the flight, Helen. These trips are expensive. You should understand that better than anyone." "I do," I said. "I paid for most of it." A flush crept up his neck. "That's not the point," he argued. "No," I said quietly. "You're right. That's not the point." I leaned forward slightly, my hands clasped in my lap. "The point," I continued, "is that you made a choice. You chose not to slow down for me. You chose not to hold my hand for 5 extra minutes. You chose not to say, if Mom doesn't board, none of us do. You chose the trip over me. That's not fair, Laura whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. For 67 years, I said softly, my life has revolved around you, around your needs, your schedules, your emergencies. I have always waited, at school gates, at hospital corridors, at home, by the phone. I have always been the one left behind. I took a breath. I decided I wouldn't let that happen at the airport, too. Silence filled the room like water in a glass. The children looked confused, glancing between their parents and me. Lucas raised his hand timidly, as if he were in school. Grandma? He asked. Did we do something wrong? My heart clenched. No, sweetheart, I said quickly. You didn't do anything wrong. This is between the adults. I looked back at my daughter. Her eyes were shiny now, though she was trying hard not to let the tears fall. We really didn't think it was such a big deal, she said, her voice breaking. We thought you'd just take the next flight. You know, you're tough. You always fix things. That's exactly the problem, Laura, I replied gently. You think I'll always fix everything, that I'll always be there, no matter how you treat me, that you can walk ahead and I'll find a way to catch up. I shook my head slowly. I can't do that anymore. Not physically, not emotionally. Mark frowned. So what? This is some kind of punishment? I looked at him steadily. No, I said. This is a lesson. For all of us. For you, for Laura, and for me. I reached for the envelope I had placed on the coffee table earlier that day. My hands didn't tremble this time. I made some decisions while you were away, I said, placing the envelope in front of them. I want you to know about them. Laura looked at it like it was a snake. What is that? My will, I replied calmly, and some changes to my finances. Her eyes widened. Mom. Don't worry, I added, glancing at the children. The grandchildren are taken care of. They each have an account now in their own names that they will access when they're older, for their education, for their dreams. Emma's eyes lit up. Really? Yes, sweetheart. I smiled. Because you two, you've never left me behind. Not yet. And I pray you never will. Not to anyone. Not in any airport. Not in life. I looked back at Laura and Mark. As for the rest, I continued, I decided something simple. I will no longer invest my money, my time, or my health into people who treat me like a suitcase they can roll along or forget somewhere. Mark scoffed. Are you seriously disinheriting us because of one flight? I met his gaze. It wasn't just one flight, I said softly. It was years of little moments that led to that flight. Years of comments about how I'm slow, how I'm old, how I'm in the way. The airport just made it visible enough that I could no longer pretend. Laura finally began to cry. Mum, we didn't mean to hurt you, she said, covering her face with her hands. We're used to you being strong. You always tell us to go on, to not worry about you. I know, I replied gently, because I thought that was what good mothers do. But I forgot that sometimes good mothers also need their children to say, we'll walk at your pace. We'll sit with you if you can't run. I let that sink in. I'm not saying this to punish you, I repeated. I'm saying this to protect myself, to teach us all that there are consequences, even in families, for how we treat each other. There was another part of the lesson, too. I took a deep breath. Do you know what I did with the rest of the travel money? I asked. Mark rolled his eyes. What? Donated it to charity? I smiled faintly. Not this time. I used part of it to book a trip. For me. They looked at me, stunned. I'm going to the coast next month, I said. A small group tour for seniors. Gentle walking, lots of time to rest. I spoke with the agency, and they said they will walk at my pace. I felt a tiny thrill saying those words out loud. My neighbour Clara will come with me, I added. She's been wanting to go for years, but never had the courage. We'll share a room. 2 old ladies at the beach, walking as slowly as we want. Emma giggled. Grandma on vacation. Yes, I said, smiling. Grandma on vacation. With someone who doesn't leave her behind. Laura wiped her eyes, staring at me as if she was seeing a stranger. I don't recognize you, she whispered. Maybe, I said, my voice calm. You're finally seeing me. I let the silence stretch. Then I softened my tone. Laura, I continued, I love you. That has never been in question. I love you more than my own breath. But love doesn't mean I allow you to hurt me without consequences. It doesn't mean I ignore it when you choose convenience over my dignity. She nodded slowly, tears falling freely now. You're right, she said. You're absolutely right, Mom. And that's what hurts the most. Mark stayed quiet, his jaw clenched. I looked at him, not with anger, but with clarity. I am not your employee, Mark, I said gently. I am not your full-time babysitter. I am not your free travel sponsor. I am your wife's mother. I am the grandmother of your children. I deserve respect. At the airport, in your home, in my own home. He stared at the floor, breathing slowly. I didn't think about it that way, he admitted finally. I just assumed you'd manage. You always do. That's the problem, I replied. No one bothered to ask if I should always be the one managing everything. We talked for a long time that afternoon. There were apologies, some sincere, some clumsy. There were tears from all sides. There were excuses, which I gently but firmly cut through. At one point, Emma climbed onto the arm of my chair and leaned her head on my shoulder. Grandma, she asked softly, are you still mad at us? I kissed the top of her head. I'm not mad at you, I said. But I am hurt, and when we're hurt, we need time and changes, not just words. What can we do? She asked. Walk with me, I replied. Not just at the airport, in life. When I'm slow, wait for me. When I'm quiet, ask me how I'm really feeling. When I say I'm tired, believe me. She nodded seriously, as if I had handed her a secret recipe. I promise, she said. I'll never leave you alone in an airport. Lucas chimed in. Me too. Children often understand things faster than adults. Their hearts are less crowded with pride. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically become perfect. Old habits are stubborn. There were still moments when Laura almost spoke to me like I was fragile and inconvenient, and then stopped herself halfway through, took a breath, and tried again with more respect. There were times when Mark caught himself snapping and then apologized. There were dinners where we talked about little, unimportant things. But underneath, there was a new awareness, a carefulness, and there was something new in me too. I started saying no sometimes. No, I can't watch the kids every single weekend. I have plans. No, I won't lend money without a clear plan to pay it back. No, I'm not comfortable with that. The first time I said no to babysitting because I wanted to go to an art class at the community center, Laura looked shocked. You'd rather go paint than stay with your grandchildren? She asked. I smiled. I'd rather live my life fully, I replied. And that makes me a better grandmother, not a worse one. She didn't understand right away, but over time she started to see that a mother who respects herself is not less loving. She is simply less invisible. The day of my coastal trip arrived. I packed my suitcase slowly, with more care than I had packed for the cancelled Madrid trip. I folded comfortable clothes, a sun hat, a book, my favorite perfume. I slipped Miguel's bracelet onto my wrist. At the door, Clara waited with a small suitcase and a nervous smile. Are you sure I won't slow you down? She asked. I laughed softly. If we slow each other down, then we're perfectly matched. A car horn honked outside. The bus that would take us to the tour departure point was here. To my surprise, Laura and the kids were waiting at the gate. Mum, Laura said, stepping forward. We wanted to come see you off. My throat tightened. Thank you, I replied. Emma hugged me tightly. Take lots of pictures, okay? I will, I promised. Lucas grabbed my hand. Walk slowly, Grandma, so you can see everything. I smiled, my eyes burning. I intend to. Mark approached then, hands in his pockets. Have a good trip, Helen, he said. You deserve it. It wasn't poetry, but there was sincerity in his voice. That was enough. Laura took a breath, her eyes shining. And when you come back, she began, maybe we can plan a smaller trip, just a weekend, somewhere close. We can walk at your pace, all of us. No rushing, no leaving anyone behind. It was a small olive branch, but it was real. We'll see, I said, one step at a time. As the bus pulled away, I looked out the window and watched them shrink into the distance. My heart felt light. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing anyone. I wasn't trying to catch up. I was exactly where I needed to be, moving at my own rhythm, choosing my own gait. And maybe that was the real lesson I had taught them, not through shouting, not through revenge, but by quietly refusing to board a plane that required me to sacrifice my dignity at the door. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to the people who take you for granted is not, I hate you, or I'll make you pay. It's simply, I will no longer go where love refuses to walk beside me. If you're listening to this, and you've ever felt like you were the one left behind, the one walking slower while everyone else rushed ahead, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not a burden, not luggage. You are not something people deal with on the way to their real destination. You are a person. You are a story. And you are worthy of being walked beside. And if the people in your life refuse to slow down for you, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step off their plane and book a journey of your own. If this story touched your heart, I'd love for you to let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what you would have done in Helen's place. Would you have boarded that plane? Or would you have done exactly what she did? And remember, if you want me to read your own real-life-based story, send me a message and I will gladly help you out with it. I'm certain that it will help others too. Thank you for being here, for walking with me through this story. If you'd like to keep listening to stories that heal, comfort, and empower, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they are not a burden. just because they walk a little more slowly.